How would you help clients prepare for a new financial reality post-divorce, specifically if they were not the one who made the financial decisions in the marriage?
Okay, so that's all right. Post-divorce, they have a settlement of monies and financial assets, and they've had time to reflect and kind of gone through the things I've talked about before. They know what kind of outcome that they're looking at. Maybe they're going to go back to work, or maybe they're going to stay in retirement, or the kids, they need a few more years. So let's assume they have all that done. I think the second part of that is they need to decide whether they're going to do this themselves. In other words, self-directed their investments and what's involved with that, or are they going to use a professional advisor? And I think there's merits to both. I think, unfortunately, in good markets, people, and it's just human bias, we tend to, they call it hindsight bias. The market was up 20% last year. Oh, this must be easy. I can just do it. The worst mistake you can make is you decide to do it on your own. You've kind of got everything set up nicely and you forget about it. You don't, and I say with any asset, you can't just leave it out. You can't leave a car out all year long. It's going to get weathered. It's going to get damaged. You can't leave a garden unwatered and what have you. It's going to get overgrown with weeds and stuff like that. So I think you need to decide, are you prepared to put the time in to look after that yourself? I think if you decide to use a professional, what you need to do is, it goes back to the values you talked about. You need to see first off, do my values, do we jive here? Because when you think about it, you're actually getting into another relationship of sorts, right? This time with a financial professional. And it's not that they're going to be hanging out at your house on Friday night watching movies and things like that, but they're going to get to know a lot of things about you at a very intimate level. And you need to feel comfortable, and you need to feel that they don't have to check off every box that they agree with you on everything value-wise, but there needs to be an overlap, or I call it a Venn diagram of common values there. And I say that as a starting point because too often it's easy to say, okay, what's your fee? And you just run around, phone everybody, and go with whoever has the lowest fee. Well, that might work buying bananas, but buying financial advice, you might end up with something very good, but you could also end up with somebody who not only doesn't represent your values, but isn't really listening to you. And Sabina, you and I have talked about this. Unfortunately, it still happens. Women have a tough time dealing with financial professionals. They still get talked down to. They still get over-talked. They don't get listened to what they want. So, I think those things are really important if you're going to use a financial professional.
And I think too, for women, not necessarily always women. I think if you're not, sometimes it's the men that are not the financial drivers in the relationship, and it's feeling stupid when talking to that financial advisor because they don't know what questions to ask. They don't necessarily know what an EFT is, or a stock, or a mutual fund. They don't know the terminology to know what's best for themselves. They know what they need maybe 10, 20 years from now to retire, or maybe they don't even know that. So I think sometimes talking to a professional can be intimidating, and finding the right professional who's not going to make you feel intimidated, but make you feel like they've got your back. Really, you can't put a price on that. And knowing that the fees ultimately are going to be covered by the growth in your portfolio. I actually can't say that I know what my financial advisor charges. I just know how much my portfolio has grown. So I'm quite happy.
You'd make the regulators pass out because they've been trying forever in the day to help people understand what the fees are. No, look.
The fees are worth it. That's what I can tell you, because if you're dealing with a qualified professional and you're seeing, results in your portfolio, that's ultimately what it comes down to, and somebody who can speak your language.
Which goes back to, we talked about earlier in the conversation, outcomes, right? If you're highly focused on the outcome, and so is your financial professional, yes, fees matter, but what matters more, are you getting the outcomes that you want, right? And you're doing it in a way that fits with your values.